Good evening and a very warm welcome to this edition of Public Forum. I'm Shalini Verma. A mass protest is going on in the United States of America against the existing financial system and the practices of Wall Street, which is the financial district of the New York City. The protesters have varied causes and no apparent demands, but they share a common grudge against unemployment and economic inequality. So in this edition of Public Forum, we'll try to analyze the genesis and the impact of Occupy Wall Street protests. My guests today are Mr. N. Madhavan, the Associate Editor with Hindustan Times, Ms. Jayashree Sengupta, Senior Fellow with Observer Research Foundation, and Dr. Sriram Chaulia, Dean and Professor of Jindal School of International Affairs, O.P. Jindal Global University. But before we start the discussion, let us first take a look at this report.
A mass protest is going on in USA against the US financial system and Wall Street practices. The leaderless protest in the Wall Street section of New York has entered its third week, helping to inspire a growing number of demonstrations united in their passion for hitting the streets. The movement, which is modeled after social media-driven demonstrations in the Middle East, aims to raise awareness about the role financial institutions played in the economic downturn affecting the world markets and to show their discontent at the lukewarm attempts to prosecute those at fault. Demonstrators are also rallying against the state of the war in Afghanistan, the state of the environment, and the state of America and the world in general. In less than 3 weeks, the movement has become a magnet for countless disaffected Americans at a time when an overwhelming majority of US adults say the country is on the wrong track. Since then, the movement has spread to cities across the United States. Besides New York and Boston, protests have been held in Chicago, Los Angeles and Seattle. Bureau Report, Lok Sabha Television.
So the Occupy Wall Street protest is certainly making headlines not only in America but also in the entire world, and speaks a lot about the resentment, the frustration that people have, especially the 20-something that are now on the Wall Street demanding an action at least on unemployment and, of course, the financial system there. But one thing is very clear here, Mr. Madhavan, to begin with. I have said that, of course, they are demanding something, but this doesn't seem to be very clear and apparent right now that they are putting forth some demand. Yes, they have some frustration regarding a few issues, but there is no leader as of now. It seems to be a very leaderless campaign and protest, but of course no demands too. So what do you really like to say about the impact of this protest?
I think right now the stage is of a ferment, and but it is pertinent to note that there are voices emerging from within the system that are lending support to the protesters. To that extent, some kind of a leadership may be emerging, at least at the level of a thought leadership, if not action. What we have, as your introduction said, is a double-edged protest. One is against unemployment in an economy that is going through what could be a double-dip recession. That is the second time of recession in a matter of 3-4 years. That is amazing. The other is the financial system. Now, the financial system part of it has again in turn two kinds of impact. One is the people who might have lost their pensions or their savings during the financial crisis that hit Wall Street in America in 2008. And then there is this whole moral outrage. If you recall, you go back, there was this whole debate about the moral hazard problem in letting, erring banks being rescued by the government, and this whole business of, protests about the bonuses coming back while jobs are not coming back. So this is basically a certain moral outrage as well. But it should be connected, in my opinion, to the presidential elections that are due next year. And it is significant that fundraising dinners and campaigns have begun in the US, and therefore I would like to think that these protesters may be part of a pressure group. History has shown in the United States that pressure groups result in even the mainstream politicians taking note of the issues, be they Republicans or Democrats. In fact, I've been reading that even some Republicans who are historically presumed to be sort of right-wing are in a way sympathetic in some respects to the protesters who are presumed to be left-wing. The truth is that the details are much more complex than that. So therefore, I would like to think that the direction is for the reforms of the financial system. Some of it has already been started by Barack Obama. On the other hand, there is also the presidential election. So hopefully we are heading towards some kind of a pressure tactic driven system.
Fine. You see some sort of pressure tactic being developed there, but they are shouting slogans like "We are the 99%," and they are drawing, in fact, a contrast between the wealthiest 1% of Americans. How do you look at this new wave of resentment among them?
This 99% slogan is a very apt slogan, I think, because more and more people are really protesting against this corporate hold of America on America. In everything, corporate business houses have a say, starting from election funding and everything. So that means these people feel helpless, and it is their their doings which has actually landed so many people in the jobless category. It is they who have taken so many bonuses, and it is they who have actually wronged these people, the 99%. So it is an outrage. It's a real mass movement, I think. It doesn't require a leader. It's everyone joining from the left, right, black, white, everyone who has been affected by this particular crisis which happened in 2008. But this is not just 2008. It started much earlier.
That's right.
Where corporate America was given all these tax cuts and all that, and all these deregulation which took place. That also helped them, because they became giant which couldn't be controlled. And today you see the aftermath.
Okay, so the irregularities in the financial system certainly can be blamed,
deregulation also.
That's right. So certainly they are upset over a combination of factors. We hear news of Afghanistan war, environment, of course, the state of America's financial system, and a combination of factors, as I say. But is protest, at this point of time, do you think that this protest is really going to go very far? What is the kind of scenario that we see now?
I think we are at the beginning of a moment in American history that is irreversible. All the pent-up frustration that we just mentioned has now mushroomed to the point that this is going to be a standing movement. There's no way the protesters will melt away or just vanish. We've had two important moments of protest since the crash of 2008. There was one sitting at a factory in Chicago, 2008, and then the Wisconsin state legislature was occupied by unions earlier this year. Both of them dispersed because they were very, very limited in their targets. They were looking at some specific local grievance about employer versus employee. It was a classic unions. But now you see the targets are varied. It can mean that the movement is very diffuse and doesn't have a single focus. But it can also mean that it is a catch-all movement, and it has so many varied interests together that one or two might slip down the radar, but the agglomeration of grievances means that this is actually going to be a long-standing movement. I don't see it melting away even in the winter this year, and it's going to build up, as Mr. Madhavan said, until the election and possibly even later, because economic justice is the kind of issue that cannot be solved purely through electoral means.
But it has brought the nation, the attention of the entire nation as well as the world.
Absolutely.
On the middle class majority, would you like to say?
The entire majority, perhaps more so than the Anna Hazare movement in India, which is mostly middle class centric. This actually, the working class is fully involved in this in a bigger way, and I think this is actually a mass movement. The only parallel is of the Vietnam era movement of the 1970s. If you go back a little further in time, Roosevelt was pressured by unions and by workers and by working class to enact the New Deal in the 1930s. So if at all it has an institutional denouement at the end, it has to involve Obama making significant concessions to the left. in order to position himself on the side of this 99%.
Okay, what would you like to say about the methodology of this particular protest? Because right now we know that the trade unions have come out in full support of these youngsters. They come from a middle class background. Most of them are working class people. That's what is coming out in news. As well as we know of the kind of social networking sites and their usage has been there, whether it's Twitter or it's Facebook or whichever way, the message is being conveyed. More and more people are being attracted towards this. And as he's talking about the life of the protest, well, certainly these are the lifelines, one would say.
Yeah, this is very interesting. In fact, I see a delicious irony in the fact that the internet was born in the Defense Department of the US. And then it, as ARPANET, and then it became open and it became a global phenomenon. And the Arabs protested using Facebook and Twitter to rally themselves. But they have in turn fired the imagination of the Wall Street protesters. So you would see that there is a wonderful cross-pollination of ideas in a very globalized world. We've been talking about the globalization of the economy, but here we are talking about the globalization of ideas of justice. Except that in the Arab world...
Would you also agree with the same thing as he is saying? He's saying that there can be parallels that can be drawn and you know, there must be some sort of inspiration coming from the demonstration.
Well, there is always a parallel which can be drawn, but in this protest is quite unique in its own way. I can even think of the Paris protest of 1968, you know, which was actually almost brought down the government, the French government. So these type of spontaneous protests don't have a pattern. They are all unique in their own way, but they use the media and all that. You know, like today's media is so different from 1968. So you can, you know, gather a lot of people.
A very interesting point there on the media specifically, because we really don't hear that much happening on the part of American media.
No, I must tell you something very interesting. As a media person, although we are discussing the economy by and large, that even during the Vietnam protests, what is now the Rolling Stone magazine known for rock music was part of the movement. It used to be called the underground journalism movement in the US. You had magazines like Village Voice and Rolling Stone coming. So there's always a parallel movement even in the media that tends to capture what is not observed or elaborated upon in the what's called the big media. So that is the end today, but the dramatic interesting things is that anyone with a Twitter account or a Facebook account is part of the media now. The media itself has become much more democratized thanks to the technology that we have.
Dr. Cholia, what are your views?
This is Web 2.0 again, you know, we've seen it time and again. In fact, there's an interesting parallel with the Red Shirts movement in Thailand. They had occupied and done sit-ins against the establishment last year and eventually achieved success in the form of changing the regime, which is now a pro-Thaksin regime, which is a pro-working class. So the employment of new media tools is, you know, it's almost becoming a cliche now. There's nothing unique in the sense that, you know, protest is somehow being fueled by it. Rather, what is interesting is how did an individualistic society like the United States, where everyone draws inward and says, I lost my job, I have to pull myself up by my bootstraps. How did they come up with the idea of social action and coming together in a way that has not been seen in 40 years? So history is, you know, the wheel is turning.
Okay, so they started in a very unorganized manner, but right now they are also seeming very organized, because we know that legal aid has been organized for them, medical aid has been lined up, and more or less they're also releasing their own newspapers because of the help that they're getting from different sections, including the trade unions. So it's time here to take a very short break in Public Forum. After the break, we'll try to find out what is exactly the underlying message that this protest really gives to the entire world.